But so let's unpack this activism, because I guess this is probably something that really I just don't. I don't know. The jury is still out for me. I think it's possible, but I want to ask you, as an elected official and a protester, how does that work? Because, in a certain sense, you have not in a certain sense, you absolutely have a duty to the public, but then protesting actually challenges that duty. What do you find in that tension there?
So, I went into being an elected official saying that, I'm here to serve people. And so the people who got me elected were people in the protest movement. They were activists. They were teachers and social workers and AmeriCorps Vistas and people who are committed to doing racial and economic justice work every day. And so those are the people that I represent. And so to a certain extent, I have the leniency to be able to advocate for that on the St. Louis Board of Aldermen, because I do represent a very, very progressive area. But I do have to say, there's still, there, especially in policing issues, it's there's always this tension, because you want to advocate for all of these policing reforms, and you also don't want to be labeled anti-police because you are advocating for those reforms. And so how do you say we need to change the way that we are policing our community without also having people who are not involved in this work see you as somebody who is not supportive of law enforcement and is anti, police?
Do you find you spend more time trying to dispel this false dichotomy that police reform is anti-police?
I do. I think I spend a lot of time doing that. I will say, though, that, in the year and a half since Michael Brown, we've come a long way in the ability to have those conversations. I think at first, people who were, feel very safe by the police and want more police because that's what their definition of safety is, felt very threatened by anybody coming in and saying, well, maybe this system that is working for you isn't working for other people in our community. But I think we've gotten to a point where we're starting to have better conversations about what public safety actually looks like, and that it's not all policing, it's not all government surveillance, that, there's a lot of components to public safety, not the least of which is actually investing in people through, substance abuse treatment and mental health treatment and things that we often cut in order to, fund more, more camera systems and more things like that.
Yeah. And to that end, I'm just looking here at something I found was very interesting. So right in line with your duty to your constituency, that, that protester following that got you elected, as well as now your duty as an alderwoman, you co-sponsored a bill that was intended to increase civilian review of allegations of police misconduct. Tell me a little briefly about that and how that played out.
So it was a pretty historical moment for the city of St. Louis. The city had been working to pass the Civilian Oversight Board for almost 20 years. And in the early 2000s, they had actually passed a Civilian Oversight Board, but it was vetoed by the mayor at the time. And fortunately or unfortunately, after Ferguson, there was a new attention to it, and there was actually the political will there finally, among both the community, the alder people, and the mayor's office to get this passed. Now, it's not the strongest bill. It doesn't have subpoena power in it. It does its investigations alongside internal affairs instead of being a completely separate organization. But I think it's a starting point. And if it doesn't work when it gets up and going in about a month and a half, then we can go back and appeal to the voters and say, we need to vote on subpoena power. We need to vote to give this more power.
So how was that received by your two constituencies, right? You have the police that you're part of the city construct. You have a duty to you have a role to play in policing and the relationship maintaining with the police. And then you also have the community. How did that play out? And particularly from your vantage point, being on both sides of the aisle, not of the aisle, but of the issue.
So it was actually really interesting. The discussion on the Civilian Oversight Board was happening during that same time that I was running for re-election, 5 months later. And so the Police Officers Association put, a good deal of money into my opponent's campaign, and they ran a very, very pro-police campaign. I mean, there was, the candidate with police officers on every single mailing, and trying to, label me as that person who was anti-police. But luckily we have a very, engaged and informed ward here who really didn't buy into that.
Yeah, and so you survived that re-election, and this bill that you co-sponsored is actually now sounds like it's going to be rolled out in the next month or so.
Yes, so we've been building up to it. We had to go through the process of actually selecting the people who would be on the Civilian Review Board. We've done that. They've been going through their Citizens Academy training right now, which is training in like basic law enforcement. And I think it's the end of April when they'll actually be done with all of their training and have staff in place, and will start to review complaints.
Awesome. Listen, I want to thank you for coming on and spending time with us to discuss this, because it's a new conversation for me, particularly. Actually, I just mentioned it on air on Thursday, so I think it's kind of serendipitous that you are both a politician as well as an activist, and you are existing in that nexus, for lack of a better word, between having to serve actually, you have three groups of people that you serve. You have the community that you serve, you have the police that you serve, and then you also have to serve that activist spirit inside of you. So thanks for coming on and discussing this, because it actually has shaped my a lot of thinking and some questions that I want to ask other people who are both politicians and activists. I want you to get the last word and then tell everyone how they can reach out to you and where they can find you.
Okay, great. Well, just thank you for having me on. I think as we talk about politicians and activists, I look at Bernie Sanders very much as a politician and an activist. I mean, he's walked the picket lines. He's, been arrested protesting, segregation. And those are the people that we need in office, the ones that are okay not playing it safe, because for me, and I think for Bernie, what matters most is us, being out there to push the envelope. And if we're not pushing the envelope, then why are we in office? And we need more people who are willing to do that. So, I consider a mission as long as I'll serve as long as people keep electing me. But it's also not, I will be an activist whether I'm elected or not. So you can get in contact with me both on Facebook and through Twitter. It's Megan Aaliyah Green, and Aaliyah is ELLYIA, and the Twitter handle is at Megan Aaliyah, which is MEGANELLYIA. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. That's Megan Aaliyah Green.
I asked you a question. Would you?
That is not what I wanted to play. I wanted to play this for you right here. It's coming up. But listen, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a phenomenal conversation. And folks, go check her out on Twitter. And we'll love to have you back again sometime soon.